Is modern life conducive to spiritual awareness and growth? If we deeply examine our current situation, the urban lifestyle, and also the pace of life which all of us are leading, there's a lot of convenience. We have information on our fingertips. We have convenience at our doorstep. We have everything. We have all the comfort and the security we need to live a minimum, a minimum viable life. But despite all these comforts, access to endless pleasure, fleeting security in the form of clothing, shelter, finances, relationships, humans have always been searching for something deeper, which gives us meaning, fulfillment, and a sense of freedom. And if we dig deep into our current ways of life, the question to ask is it making us more spiritually aware and in tune with the laws of nature, or are we deviating away from it? One perspective is that there's a lot of information these days, there's a lot of awareness intellectually about the spiritual path, which is good because collectively, as humans and living beings, we have to go through a karmic process of evolution. And sometimes when the laws of nature are moving towards imbalance, we will be reminded through very intense phases and experiences, such as the pandemic, wars, global crises, weather change. And when we start to look at life outside a bubble of comfort and happiness, we begin to see that there's a lot of suffering and pain in the world. And then yet, despite having a high-paying job, a happy relationship, a comfortable home, we still find that there is a void. There is some void that we are trying to fill. And that's when the true spiritual path begins. When the daily life activities and possessions and in experiences don't fulfill us, then we begin to seek something higher, something deeper, something more meaningful and fulfilling. And whether we call this God, yoga, Brahman, universe, consciousness, whatever name that we give this to, all of us will acknowledge the need to find a higher purpose or cause or power. And that's when the path of yoga begins, when we go through, when we witness a lot of suffering in the world and in our own lives. That's when we awaken to the reality and the law of nature. And sometimes this suffering is a very important ingredient for transformation. But we have always been accustomed to always seeking happiness, chasing comfort, that we don't accept this part of life. And the moment we talk about it, there is a sense of resistance, aversion, because it creates discomfort in the body and the mind. And we are so prone to always seeking comfort and joy and bliss and pleasure that we are rejecting an entire aspect of life. But if you look at life around us, if you look at nature, discomfort, adversity, they're all part of life. And the moment we accept this reality, this truth that suffering is essential for transformation, half the battle is won there. Because whatever we go through, then there's a deeper sense of acceptance. And when we begin to swim with the tide, naturally we struggle less. So we have to find a path and a philosophy which helps us to understand with this aspect and the real purpose behind suffering. And this is why it's important to have a daily discipline which helps us to tap into our inner strength and resilience that will help us to deal with adversity and challenges and the ups and downs of life and the mind. But how do we get there? We have to connect to something bigger than us. We start off with abhyasa on the mat, a daily practice which will help us to condition the body, strengthen the nervous system, calm the mind, awaken prana. All of this help us to prepare the system to deal with awakening, to deal with challenges life throws at us. But at the same time, there has to be a connection to a higher source. And this could mean connecting to a form of the divine, if one is inclined towards that. Or it could mean that we connect to a higher purpose, cause which gives us a sense of purpose beyond us, where we can help others, create impact. And this is very important because if we keep dwelling on our own suffering, then we will be lost in that all the time. And it's easy to switch into a mode of being a victim and blaming circumstances and lives and the creator for whatever we go through. But the other option is to accept what is happening, accept it as a nature of life, and take responsibility and ownership of whatever we go through, but having faith that we can do it, we can overcome it. And if faith in ourselves is fluctuating and not strong at times, then we have to connect to a higher power and derive our strength and faith from that. With utmost faith and belief and surrender to the higher power, we know that we are protected, we are guided. And this is very important when we look at any journey of transformation. Without a higher purpose, a higher cause, or a higher power, it's very difficult to sustain the journey. Because we have our limitations. The mind will create many reasons to not continue and give up. The body, has its own wear and tear daily. The nervous system undergoes exhaustion and imbalance. So it's important to have this connection to something higher than us. And that's where we derive our strength. It could be service. It could be charity. It could be bhakti, devotion. It could be abhyasa on the mat. Whatever that gives us that grounding is very important. And how do we recognize what that higher power or calling is? We have to sit with ourselves in silence. Certainly, information from the outside, including this podcast, is helpful. But at the same time, when we sit with ourselves in silence, without any noise from the digital world, we begin to listen to the intuition and the inner voice within. And that's what will guide us in the long term. Perspectives will always be there. And I encourage you to listen to this, but also take space, create space to listen to what your inner voice is saying about this teaching. And when we connect with silence and intuition, solitude and stillness, we begin to really awaken and tap into our inner potential. And we begin to see a lot of insights, a lot of nuances and subtleties that are not there in books, podcasts, videos, courses, trainings. So the intention of this podcast is to help you recognize the nature of suffering, the importance of connection with a higher power, a cause, a purpose, and the importance of a daily sadhana and abhyasa to strengthen the will, to strengthen the body, emotions, mind. And finally, to assimilate all this and create space of solitude, stillness and silence to dig deep for them and find insights so that we can apply them in our practice, in our lifestyle, relationships, work. I hope this serves you well, and I wish you a peaceful day ahead. Hari Om Tat Sat.